Thank you so much for that beautiful welcome. I'm excited to share with you today. Okay, let me see. Oh. I want to ask you a simple question. What does it mean to truly feel held by God? Not just believing that God is holding you, but really feeling that your life is held, that your heart is known, and that love is always surrounding you. Today, I want to explore a little bit about something that has been quietly awakening in many hearts and minds around the world. The reality of Heavenly Mother and what it means to return to the embrace of our Heavenly Parent. So let's start at the beginning. Our birth story. And this is a verse, let's see, is it working? I don't know, okay. This is a verse, thank you, that we've all heard many, many times before. But instead of reading through it quickly, I really want us to take it slowly and notice the rhythm here. Genesis 1:27 says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And what is so beautiful and striking about this 3-verse scripture is that it reveals something profound. The very first line talks about our origin. God created man in his image. Our origin is the image of God. And in the second line, it kind of repeats itself. It says, in the image of God, he created him. Why does Scripture repeat itself? Maybe it's trying to tell us to pay attention. Focus in on this very important theme. This is central to who you are, the truth of who you are. We are made in the divine image of God. And then something beautiful happens in the third line. It unfolds into the expression of that image. Bless you. Male and female, he created them. So here we are, we have our origin, our source, God, the one omnipotent being, who then is expressed in two. The image of God is not just only masculine, and it's not just only feminine, but it is the expression of both together. Some ancient traditions even say that male and female, represented in this verse, refer to two complementary halves of a whole. Complementary, paired completeness. Two expressions that together reveal the fullness of life. The fullness and wholeness of who God is. So right from the very first chapter of the very first book in the Bible, we are given this profound insight. Humanity reflects God through both the masculine and the feminine. And yet, if we look throughout all of history, humanity has spoken mostly about God as Father, with male pronouns. Which raises the question, if male and female together reflect the image of God, what part of God's heart might we have forgotten? True Father once described the universe in the most striking way. He said that the entire universe is like a womb. A womb, which we know is a place where life is held. It's safe there. Where life is nurtured. Where life grows before it is born. And when Father used this image, he was pointing to something very significant about the heart of God and the nature of creation. He said, the universe is the womb of our second mother. We are all now living in our mother's womb, the womb of the mother universe. If creation itself reflects this womb-like quality, then perhaps the universe is not only just an expression of God's power, but an expression of God's nurturing heart. Life begins inside an embrace. And from the very beginning, we were meant to live inside love. The heart that carries life, the heart that protects life, the love and heart that longs to embrace life. And when we begin to look at creation through that lens, we begin to get a glimpse of something that often humanity has overlooked. And Uncle James said it, the motherly heart within God. So if creation reflects this wholeness of God, maybe we should ask ourselves, what does the heart of that God feel like? And Scripture gives us a beautiful answer. In Isaiah 66:13, it says, as a mother comforts her child, so I will comfort you. God compares his own love to the love of a mother comforting her child. God could have chosen anyone, a king, a ruler, a judge, but yet God chooses a mother. In Deuteronomy 32:18, it says, you deserted the rock who fathered you. You forgot the God who gave you birth. This reminds us that God's love is not only guiding and protecting, but it's also life-giving and nurturing. When we speak about the wholeness of God's love, we are speaking about the fullness of God's parental heart. The strength of a father and the tenderness of a mother. You know, mercy is mentioned many times in the Bible, And it's not just talking about God's kindness. In the Hebrew language, mercy actually comes from and shares the same root word as the word womb. So when the Bible is talking about God's mercy, it's talking about returning to that womb love, that love of protection, of nurturing, that womb-like compassion. That is God's mercy. And so the kind of love that holds life, that nurtures life, that protects life, and refuses to abandon the life that it holds, that is God's love in its fullness and richness. And sometimes the heart of God is not something that we can just explain to people, but it's something that we must experience. And when we begin to receive God as heavenly parent, father and mother together, our relationship can deepen. Love feels fuller. Mercy, this womb love compassion, feels closer than ever before. And delight in God becomes more natural. Holy Mother Han said, I lived with a feeling that something or someone was embracing me, and I felt free in my heart. Perhaps this is one of the most simplest ways to understand the heart of our Heavenly Parent. The feeling of being embraced, of being held, and set free in love. When you feel held and you feel safe, what do? You just want to exhale and stay in that embrace for as long as you can. True Father often spoke about this experience as well. He said, once you have felt the heart of God, you feel that you cannot survive if it should ever leave you. And until you are reunited with God's heart, you feel lifeless. So many people today feel that lifelessness. Not because God is absent, but because something in our relationship with God has been forgotten. Something about how to receive God's heart. In Divine Principle, we often say that restoration history is the story of humanity returning to God's heart. It's not about fixing heaven or rescuing God or liberating God. It's about restoring relationship. Restoration is about remembering love and receiving love. The tragedy of the fall was the loss of living inside the embrace of God's heart. The relationship was severed. Holy Mother Han teaches that human beings were created to experience and embody God's true love through life. We are meant to live with God each and every moment of the day, all the time. In other words, restoration is the journey of learning how to receive love again and circulate it back to God and to one another. We know that, actually, just imagine the relationship, between the sun and a flower. The sun shines constantly, giving warmth and light and life. The flower doesn't force the sun to shine. It simply turns towards it and opens. When the flower opens, its beauty appears. And that beauty is the flower's response to the sun. God's love is like the sun, always shining, always on, always beaming towards us. And when we open ourselves up to receive it, something beautiful appears in us. We know that love moves in a circular motion. The subject partner gives love to the object partner receives the love, gives and returns that love into something beautiful back to the subject partner. God, our subject partner, is loving us all the time. When we are able to receive that love, something beautiful in us appears in the form of inspiration, the desire to create, to move, to act. And what we create becomes beautiful, and the result, and we return that back to God. And then joy appears. Love becomes whole when it is circulated. Holy Mother Han says, on the day that the hearts of men and women can take hold of God's true love, we will be inspired to sing and dance for tens of thousands of years. How beautiful is that vision? Restoration ends in joy. Joy. With love circulating freely once again between heaven and earth. But humanity has forgotten how to receive that love. And Heavenly Mother represents the tenderness that restores our capacity to receive. For much of religious history, there's been such an emphasis on obedience, sacrifice, responsibility. Those things are important. They matter. They make a difference. But sometimes we become so focused on serving God that we forget how to receive God's love. A flower doesn't struggle to bloom. It simply opens itself up to receive sunlight. In the same way, our spiritual life begins to grow when we open ourselves up to receive God's heart and love. Restoration doesn't begin with striving and proving. It begins with receiving. We may struggle with surrendering because we are so used to carrying responsibility. But I think love now is just asking us simply to receive without the need to perform. Perhaps part of rediscovering the heart of Heavenly Mother is also rediscovering something within ourselves. The ability to receive tenderness without shame or guilt. to allow mercy, this womb love compassion, to hold us before we feel the need to prove ourselves. To trust that we are loved, not just as workers or soldiers in God's providence, but as children in God's embrace. And when we begin to experience that love deeply, something changes. We no longer feel the need to convince other people about God's heart, because now love is just radiating, emanating out of us naturally. Rumi, the Sufi poet, says, "Cry out. Don't be stolid and silent with your pain. Lament. And let the milk of loving flow into you." Maybe restoration begins with something very simple. Allowing ourselves to cry out to God once again. To bring our questions, our wounds, our longing. And discovering that the one we cry out to has been holding us all along. Because from the very beginning, we were created to live held within the love of our heavenly parents. And maybe the journey of faith is simply learning how to return to that embrace. Thank you.